In the current era of AI, supporting students and deciphering authenticity can be a real challenge. Today, I'm bringing up an important discussion with instructors from Colorado Technical University who have taken the AI discussion down to the way our brains work, where authenticity comes up short using AI, and wonderful tips to mindfully integrate AI. Welcome to the Hawk's Edge, where we explore insightful conversations on teaching, technology, and transformation in higher education. I'm your host, Valerie Kramer-Ball, and in each episode, we bring you real voices, real challenges, and real innovation that is shaping the future of learning. In this episode, I'm sharing a very insightful presentation from the Innovative Educators Summit just last fall. This revisit to the presentation, Supporting Students in an Era of AI, brings very important insights about how AI affects our learning, and this focus on writing in the age of AI really shares key insights, patterns, and I just love the focus on authenticity. It's something AI cannot make up for. Does it know us? So really a lack there of authenticity when using artificial intelligence for writing and learning. We really hope you enjoy this episode.
I am Dr. Genevieve Condon, and I am one of the lead faculty members at Colorado Technical University. And we're so excited that you're here. We're going to talk a little bit about supporting students in a era of AI. So today, our main focus is really how are we going to embrace technological advancement while protecting both educational integrity, which is important, as well as student growth. So I always find, or still find, that this is a very delicate balance because we want to ensure that the students are growing, and that includes utilizing technology, but also keeping educational integrity as well. So that's kind of going to be our core focus for today's discussion. So really what we have found, we, meaning Dr. Derryberry and myself, we both work very closely mentoring and teaching both faculty and students within the psychology department at CTU. And really one of the challenges that we have found is that generative AI is everywhere. It is here to stay. Gone are the days where at least I thought maybe it would come and go, but the temptation really is strong with students to skip what we like to refer to as authentic writing, which is utilizing their authentic self and their thoughts as well. But it's important to remember that writing just isn't a form of communication. Obviously, a form of communication that's important. It really is, from a psychological perspective, writing is our identity. It's our thinking. Part of it can be healing, depending on how we use writing. So that's going to kind of be part of our conversation today. Part of that, when we're thinking about writing as an identity formation is really one of the concepts that we embrace at CTU, especially when it comes to using AI in the classroom. So just to kind of be clear and set the stage, at CTU, we do allow AI use in the classroom as long as it is ethical, which I know that is a very loaded concept. But part of what we do is we really aim to teach and explore with students the importance of writing as an identity formation. So that main concept is, who am I? Right? Thinking about, their own personality traits, their culture, their values, skills and talents, all of these great concepts. AI doesn't provide any of that, right? It's going to provide more of that core writing, structure, and all of that great stuff. It's really not going to get down to the nitty-gritty, so to speak, of who each individual student is. So we really express the importance of, it's a great tool, but don't lose yourself. Don't lose who you are throughout that process. I'm sure you all have heard critical thinking, right? What is AI? How is it impacting critical thinking development? It is especially important in the college years for students to develop that critical thinking. So when students are engaging in the process of writing, utilizing their own thoughts, they're actually going through several important cognitive processes. And if we take that away, obviously, we are losing some of those. So some of these here are some of the most important ones. Neural network formation. So our neural networks, how we process information, how we think through information, very simplistically. It might seem like it's not that big of a deal, but if we start to rely too much on technology or AI, which is, as a crutch, we're going to lose some of that neural formation, the deep processing. So that critical thinking piece, really thinking through, we all remember English class, who, what, when, where, why, right? All of that, tying in those personal experiences, which is part of that metacognitive awareness as well, which is essential. And then lastly, one of my personal favorites is the analytical thinking development. So in psychology at CTU, we are very much an applied program, meaning part of what we want the students to do is not just regurgitate information back to us, but we really structure our assignments, discussions, our curriculum around getting students to think critically, analytically, and show us how they can apply what they've learned to various aspects of their life, whether it's, the workplace, their personal life. Dr. Kim's going to speak a little bit more about that, how we have integrated that into the classroom in a little bit. But this analytical thinking development, we can lose that if we are relying on AI to complete assignments fully. And to be clear again, I'm not saying don't use AI. I think AI is a absolutely wonderful tool, but that's the key word there, tool, right? We're not going to use it to complete assignments. We're going to teach and guide students on how to put in their own thoughts, right? Their own critical thinking, and use it as that tool to help them further develop their thought process, that sort of thing. So another big piece is emotional growth, right? Emotional intelligence is a really integral part of human development in general, not just for students. And writing has been found to be a huge support in developing emotional intelligence, emotional processing. So when students write about personal experiences, especially ones that are challenging, are being used or activated, so to speak. So emotional organization, really making sense of their emotions, how they felt in a particular situation, drawing those parallels. And then that is then allowing them to do what we call integration of experience, which is then saying, okay, this particular situation impacted me this way. Here is how then I can use it, to help me in the workplace, or here is how I can be aware of ways that this might show up and challenge me in the future. And that's a lot of emotional disclosure as well, being very open and honest about how things have made us feel, processing through those emotions, which can be difficult. But like I said, writing has been found to be a huge support of emotional processing and growth. So that's why we really want to make sure that we're using AI more as a tool. Also here, self-reflection. So, and metacognition, which is super important as well. But self-reflection, I think, is super important just holistically, right? So when students are engaging in the writing process, they are constantly practicing metacognition. And what that is they're actively monitoring, controlling their own thinking processes, thinking about this doesn't work. Let's take this out. I'm not, this doesn't seem to match well together. So even those little bits and pieces of decision making really matter of emotional come together collectively for that metacognition piece. So part of that as well, there's a lot of things involved, and we don't have hours and hours to go over that, but from a very high level, the planning and strategy selection. So a little bit about how I just mentioned it, right? What should be included, what shouldn't, what's working, what should be taken out of it. And that is actually a really great use of AI, is when you're putting in some sort of thought that you have or idea. I always encourage students to say, hey, put it in, say, does this work? Does this kind of go well together? Do you have any suggestions? And that's a really great great way to help support that metacognitive processing as well as that self-reflection. Also, knowledge gaps. I know I use AI for this. I'll put in something and be like, okay, what's missing? I know something's missing. I can't figure it out. And part of the writing process and this self-awareness and metacognition of emotional being aware of when we just don't know something, right? And that can be really hard to admit. But when we are engaging in the writing process, that often comes up. We then know we have to go do additional research. Maybe we need to ask our professor some additional questions, that sort of thing. And that's ultimately what we want to do. But again, AI is a really great resource for that as far as supporting and aiding where those knowledge gaps are concerned. There has been a study that has actually been done about what actually happens to our brain when we are using AI. And I was so excited when this came out, because really it shows here the first brain scan of users who use specifically ChatGPT. And it says the results are terrifying, but I want to reframe that a little bit. I don't really think they're terrifying. I just think they're eye-opening. I think this just reinforces some of what we already know as educators, right? And really what that shows is that when we're comparing the brain activity, those neural formations that I mentioned, that neuroactivity, all of that is diminished, right? So we want to be sure that we are encouraging the appropriate, or at CTU, how we like to call it, the ethical use of AI, right? So in this particular study, it was done at MIT of a media lab, and really, there were two different groups. One wrote essays completely on their own without any digital tools. And then another group used, some access, so more Google searching, things like that. And then another group had full access to ChatGPT. And really, you could see here in the photo, as far as the brain scans, this is a replica, of course, the results of those who used ChatGPT, and those who did not. So just very eye-opening, because now we're seeing it. It's not just theory. It's not just, hey, this is what could potentially happen or we think is going to happen from a psychological or critical thinking or, brain development standpoint. We actually have concrete knowledge and view. We have scans that support the results and kind of where our thinking has gone or will continue to go. So I'm very, very excited to kind of see where this research continues to go. So now I am going to pass it to Dr. Kim, who's going to talk a little bit about how AI writing differs from human writing and why, kind of further solidify why all of this is important.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are, I suppose. I'm Dr. Kim Derryberry. I am also one of the lead faculty in the psychology department at Colorado Technical University. I work very closely with Dr. Condon. And two peas in a pod when it comes to psychology and AI working together, how it's supposed to work. And, we do promote the ethical use of AI in the classroom. We're working on, those policies and things along the line that we're supposed to have. I'd like to say that AI is the future, but it's here. And I'm sure that many of you are working on those type of guidelines and where things are supposed to be in the classroom and things along that line. So AI differs. AI writing is different from human writing, and we are taking that approach in our classrooms. AI writing is more structurally different. It is more formulaic. It is less creative, and we keep that in mind. We want our learners to be able to show their voice, and that is the approach we want them to take. We want them to be able to tell us the essence of what they want to tell us in their assignments, in their discussion boards, in their presentations, things along that line. So I'm going to present a little bit more on how what the writing is like between the two. AI can simulate emotion. It just doesn't experience it. It creates a fundamental authenticity gap, as Dr. Condon was saying, and AI lacks in the individual perspective that comes from lived experiences. So AI can identify patterns in language rather than create meaning from personal understanding. We as humans build our vernacular based on lived experiences. AI doesn't have lived experiences. AI or human writing evolves from personal growth. AI mimics patterns from existing texts. AI writing is formulaic, it's patterned, it relies on predictable structures. It looks for, it builds topic sentences, transitions, summaries, and it draws from patterns in the data that it was trained on. So it makes it coherent, but sometimes it's repetitive or overly structured. It focuses on clarity and completeness. And AI prioritizes making sure the information is accurate, balanced, and easy to follow. It avoids ambiguity and tends to over-explain to ensure comprehension. It has a neutral tone. AI writing often lacks distinct personality or emotional tone, and it aims for professionalism and neutrality. So it's very easy for us as instructors to see that there is missing that voice, that personal experience. It's limited in creativity. It can imitate creative techniques, but it struggles to genuinely produce metaphors, unusual syntax, or emotional resonance without human guidance. It needs to be told to put personality in there, personal tone, things along that line. Whereas with human writing, we take stylistic risks. Human writers experiment with sentence length, structure, rhythm. We might use fragments, rhetorical questions, unusual phrasing to create moods and emphasis. Humans use imagery, metaphors, emotional language to engage our readers on a deeper level. We have strong voices and perspectives, and AI lacks all that. We reflect our personalities, our values, and our emotions. AI doesn't do any of that. And we're imperfect, and our writing shows that we're imperfect. So it makes us authentic. It's not generated. So we have rough edges. We have inconsistencies. And these quirks often make us feel even more genuine and engaging. And that's kind of really what we want in the classroom, is we want that authenticity and that genuineness. We want that rough edge curriculum, even though, students strive for perfect edge. We still want that roughness. We still want to see that so we can help them direct toward, better writing. But then we know that it's them. We know that it's not AI. So AI can simulate emotion, but again, it doesn't experience it. So it creates what we call that authenticity gap. It doesn't feel anything. So you can ask it to associate something like sadness. It'll put in terms like loss, grief, heartache, but again, it doesn't feel it. Okay, it doesn't feel it. And because AI lacks consciousness, empathy, and lived experiences, there's a fundamental authenticity gap. Human emotion in writing comes from memory, perspective, and vulnerability. So these are qualities that connect with readers on a deeper level. And AI can reproduce a form of emotion, but it's not its true essence. So AI mimics emotion through data. Humans express emotion through experience. So there's a huge difference there. And the result is that AI writing can appear polished, but often feels emotionally flat or impersonal, while human writing carries nuance and tension and authenticity born from lived truth. So this table basically shows comparisons. You can see how the human writing on one side and the AI writing on the other. There's a difference in creativity. There's a difference in emotion, our personal growth, our authenticity, our adaptability. All of these are needed within writing. But again, human writing evolves from personal growth and AI mimics patterns from existing text. Now, does that mean that the more that you write with AI, the more it's going to evolve? Yes, but it still doesn't have, it's going to evolve off those patterns. It's not going to truly, as I said, catch that essence of what you're wanting to portray in your writing. It's still going to be a little bit flatter than what you had hoped to caption in your writing. And again, and they put this out that you'll be able to get these slides, so you'll be able to analyze this a little bit better. But as you can tell with creativity, human writing is original ideas, and you get the metaphors in there, and you get that personal perspective, and we experiment with things, shorter sentences and fragments and things like that. And the AI writing it's meant to be structured, and it's going to be very more on the rigid side. You don't have the emotion with the AI writing. You're going to get the emotion that comes out in creativity. I'm going to show you an example here in a minute. personal growth with human writing, it evolves over time. You gain new experiences, you gain your knowledge, you gain your insight, and it reflects on your beliefs, your maturity, and your self-awareness. Whereas with AI writing, it doesn't grow. It doesn't grow. It is, again, based on those patterns. Authenticity, it's deeply personal when human writing is. Readers sense the writer's voice and lived perspectives. And AI writing then can appear authentic superficially, but it often lacks that lived experience, and it might feel hollow or, imitative. And this is where what we find with students, when they start doing the copy paste, and you see it in discussion boards and things like that, that's usually the biggest one that you can pick out, because it's kind of a blanketed, generic kind of, this is how I feel about this. This is why I chose this particular piece of information to talk about, because it doesn't really, there's no depth to it. There's no depth. And then adaptability, as far as human writing goes, it can take creative risk. You can break the rules. You're looking to explore unconventional structures, things along that line. You're basing it on intuition. And then AI writing, it follows the patterns, and it may struggle to find the highly unconventional and abstract approaches. So it's going to go off of the data that's already in the system. Okay, so let's look at an example with an 88 character or 88 words plugged in there. You put in a prompt and you say, one of the engines, can you please describe your firstborn child? And the one on the left was written in AI, and meeting my firstborn child was truly a magical experience, on and on and on and on and on. It's nice, it's sweet, it's descriptive, but it's not, it's bland. It's kind of generic. It's what anybody could write about, meeting your firstborn child. But then you look at the human writing, and this is truly coming from someone's experience, right? He's so quiet, looking up at the nurse. He smiled behind a mask. It's truly coming from someone's experience. And that is not, there's a difference in the writing. And that's what we want the students to pull from, is their own experiences. Doesn't mean that one versus the other is wrong. Well, what are you developing in your classrooms? CTU is working on, bringing in AI into the classroom. I'm going to show you an example of what we've been doing in one of our leadership courses. Put in a prompt and compare the two. What does AI say you should have for an example or for an answer? And what is your true feelings on things? And so they can see that there is a difference in writing. I think right now that's the biggest deal with AI writing, is students just assume that what they see is what they get, and that is it. They don't realize that it is pulling their voice away, that they are losing that essence. Many students lack confidence in their writing, and they're seeing that AI is superior. Okay. They're worried that AI is so good, so rigid, so patterned that they're losing their own confidence. We want to be able to help students understand their personal experiences. We need to help empower students to draw from their own lives, to help them see that their experiences, their backgrounds and perspectives are meaningful sources of insight and creativity. When students recognize that their stories matter, they begin to write with more authenticity and confidence. And this approach not only deepens engagement, but also bridges academic learning to personal identity. And recognizing the uniqueness of personal perspective, every student then brings a distinctive lens shaped by their culture, community, and experience. Encouraging students to reflect on how their perspectives influence their thinking and writing, and reinforces the idea that a diversity of thought enriches learning. So you're not going to lose that critical thinking. You want to get them engaged. It also helps them appreciate that there is no single right way to express themselves or to express their ideas. There's only honest and thoughtful one. Meaningful writing then often requires vulnerability and experience with voice, tone, and subject matter. So by normalizing imperfection and celebrating experimentation, educators can help students to step outside formulaic responses and develop greater ownership of their work. Constructive feedback should focus on growth and exploration, not just correctness. Thanking them in the feedback for their personal, their personal stories. I know that at CTU, we have a lot of students that come from different backgrounds, and we tell them, thank you for sharing this with us. We want to appreciate that they are vulnerable in these moments, and that does help. They're not going to get that with AI. Create safe spaces for authentic expression. Students are more likely to share their voices when they trust that their ideas will be respected. Establishing a classroom culture grounded in empathy, openness, and mutual respect allows for authentic self-expression. In such spaces, students can discuss personal experiences and challenge topics without fear of judgment. Those make for great discussion boards. We want them to challenge some topics. That's why they call them discussion boards. It's not just post and then not have peer responses. I'm sure some of you might be seeing that in your classrooms. And then celebrate distinctive voices. When teachers highlight individuality rather than conformity, they affirm the value of creative and diverse expression. Recognizing each student's unique writing style, tone, and perspective encourages pride in authorship and strengthens community within the classroom. Celebrating distinctive voices reminds students that their words have power and their viewpoints contribute meaningfully to collective understanding. We want them to be able to share their opinions. We want them to be able to have their voice. So the AI use continuum. Introducing an AI use continuum helps visualize the spectrum between appropriate and inappropriate applications. So acceptable uses include using AI to generate research questions, summarize readings, or brainstorming ideas, tasks that support learning without replacing critical thinking. Unacceptable uses include having AI write entire essays, complete assignments, or fabricate sources. I'm sure some of you have seen this in your classroom where they copy paste, they put it right into their assignment, whether it's a discussion board or it's an essay that they have to write. Maybe they click on those resources and those resources go absolutely nowhere. We run into those, but those are unacceptable uses. These actions undermine both academic integrity and the development of essential writing and reasoning skills. So this continuum makes expectations transparent and empowers students to make reasonable choices rather than fear of punishment. We want to teach them which are the acceptable and which are the unacceptable uses. Okay, using AI as a brainstorming partner. When framed correctly, AI can serve as a collaborative thinking tool, not as a substitute. We want to encourage students to use AI so we can explore multiple angles on a topic. Most students, I teach diversity. Most students, they get that Teflon Velcro effect, confirmation bias. I only want to get my side of it. Have them use AI to look at the other side of a topic. Refine and expand on their own ideas. What else could you tell me about this topic? I ask them during my live chats, get your Chat GPT going, get your Google going, get your Claude going, whatever's going. I have them use it during my live chats so they can tell me more about it, and I'm not the only one engaging them during the live chat. Clarify complex concepts or definitions. I have a granddaughter who is all AI right now, and she'll ask me, Grandma, what does this mean? Don't ask me, ask Claude, Chat GPT. This is the time to get them used to it. Get them used to using that. The old school dictionary, they carry a cell phone around with them all the time. This is the time that they can start looking into concepts a little bit further. So to reinforce this distinction, design the exercises where students first generate ideas independently and then use AI to compare the suggestions. And that's something that we are working on at CTU with our classes. So modeling ethical technology use, educators do play a vital role in modeling ethical AI engagement. So by openly discussing benefits for both AI and the risks of AI, instructors help students develop digital literacy and moral awareness. So sharing real-world ethical dilemmas like AI plagiarism, data privacy, algorithmic bias, and inviting discussions on how to navigate them, that's something that we can do as educators. Demonstrating transparency, for instance, explaining when and how you've used AI in a lesson, planning or research, that's something we can be doing. I know that, when we built the leadership course that I'm going to tell you about, we let them know we used AI to build components of this assignment. Emphasizing accountability, reminding students that human reasoning, reflection, and integrity must always guide technological use. AI is not always right. ChatGPT has this little disclaimer at the very bottom that says it is not always right. It is not always right. Make sure that they know that. right? Emphasize accountability. And then the goal, of course, is to empower ethical leaders. The goal is not to ban AI. It's to equip students to use it thoughtfully as a tool for learning, creativity, and inquiry. When students understand where reasonable
Of emotional
ends and misuse begins, they can gain both academic integrity and the confidence to engage ethically with emerging technologies. So we talk about nurturing AI use, and I want to talk a little bit on incorporating regular reflection in the writing process. It's not just the end product that we're going for. Okay, students, nurturing student growth as writers, you focus on the process, not the product. You incorporate regular reflection activities that help them understand how their writing evolves and why their choices matter. Use journaling as a tool to nurture self-awareness, allow those students to track their writing development, explore challenges, and celebrate progress over time. And then guide discussions about their writing choices, invite the students to articulate why they structured ideas, selected words, adopted particular tones. Again, we want them to get to the essence of things. And then when they're in an AI, they can compare their writing to the AI versions of what they're writing. We want to design writing experiences that nurture the students' critical thinking, creativity, and ownership. So you can create prompts that AI cannot effectively answer and nurture that deeper inquiry by asking questions that require personal reflection or lived experiences or original interpretation. You know, the areas where the human insight shines. You want to incorporate personal reflection requirements. You want to design multi-stage assignments with process documentation or include oral components to reinforce ownership. Assignments that are presentations, discussions, overall or interviews that nurture communication skills. Use a portfolio approach to do showcase growth. So it's starting to get more and more in the classrooms. One of them that we have done is our leadership course AI assignment. We recently revised our psychology of leadership course and took the opportunity to incorporate AI. And for one of those assignments, we asked students to reflect on their own leadership style. We asked them to understand that their own leadership style was a crucial step in their journey to becoming an effective leader. And the assignment was to guide them through the process of self-discovery, combining self-assessment tools with thoughtful reflection, and examining their strengths, preferences, and personal definitions of leadership so that they could gain, insight to inform them about their future development as a leader. So we asked them to take a personality self-assessment. They had choices, MBTI, 16 personalities, things like that. They had their choice. And then to reflect on the results of that self-assessment. And from there, we asked them to write a consideration of their results and the information that they had learned about their leadership style, to write about that and to feel if their personality test aligned with their leadership style. Then we asked them to go to Microsoft Copilot, which we built into the classroom, to craft the leadership statement based on their personality results and leadership style, and then to edit their statement to reflect on their values and strengths of the leader. So basically what they did was they wrote their paper on what they thought their strengths and leadership style were, and then we had an AI version. And they had to basically do a comparison, a reflection of whether or not AI provided them a strong leadership statement, why or why not, do a comparison, and then submit this and take a look. So submission data in the course, the assignment is continuing to improve term over term. The feedback from the students, they really particularly like this assignment. And this assignment, it's powerful because it's nurturing the student's self-awareness and ethical AI use. It's helping connect that technology to personal growth rather than replacement. And then we're blending self-reflection and AI collaboration, so the students are getting the deeper understanding of leadership identity while developing critical thinking skills to define their effective, authentic leaders themselves. So it's been an interesting process. We're seeing how it's going. That was the very first one that we incorporated AI into. And we're seeing that benefit, and we're starting to build more AI into each of the courses now as we go through revision. AI is a powerful tool, but authentic student voice is irreplaceable. Our job as educators is to guide students in using AI in ways that amplify rather than erase their individuality, creativity, and cognitive growth.
This conversation really highlights accountability and equipping students to thoughtfully use AI as a tool, while ensuring that critical thinking maintains a strong part of their learning process. This Innovative Educators Summit presentation is just one of many at our annual virtual conference. You can sign up now for live sessions coming this October at hawkslearning.com/IES. And as always, please click that subscribe button on your podcast app to ensure you don't miss a single episode of The Hawk's Edge. Until next time, keep pushing the edge of what's possible in education. This episode was hosted, produced, and recorded by Valerie Ball. Editing and sound design by Liz Four. Music by Ryan Hannafin. Logo design by Caitlin Neville. This podcast is presented by Hawks Learning. Be sure to follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcast.